Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Mesa City Council meeting for the morning of Thursday, September 5th. I will note for the record that council members Spilsbury and Duff are with us virtually, and the rest of the council is here in the council chambers. First item on our agenda is, to review the agenda for our Monday, September 9th regular council meeting. So council, please refer to that document. I note a few interesting things on this. For one of the, we'll see how this pans out on the liquor license, but right now there's a recommendation for denial. Councilmember Goforth, I know that you're working on that in your district, so we'll see if that continues to be on the agenda or not. Council, yes, Mr. Brady.
We do have some presentations.
Oh, great. Which item? Well, let's first see if there's any.
No, okay, just let you know.
Councilmember Duff, Councilmember Spilsbury, is there anything on Monday's agenda that you'd like any additional information on?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie?
I was curious about the parking garage renovations, what we're doing there. Is that one of the presentations?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect.
We'll get to that, it sounds like. Thank you. Council, in the chambers, anything on the agenda that you'd like more information on?
I was curious about 4F and 4G and the increase in services. It seems like, again, in fleet, we have some unexpected increases.
Yeah, it's just staffing.
Mayor, Mayor, I just wanted to let you know too, for the Rumors Cafe, item 3F, there will be comments on that for
Sure.
Monday night.
Yeah, we've heard there's substantial community interest in this, so if it continues on the agenda, likely will come off the agenda or the consent agenda because there'll be public comment.
So I just wanted to
Okay, thank you.
Hi, good morning, Mayor and Council. Mike Lewis, Fleet Services Director. To answer your question, this is for a cover for some of our staffing shortages. We have just a limited amount of hours and nighttime to turn these trucks around and be able to make them usable the next day. So we contracted labor to come in and help for our staffing shortages. And we found it to be very successful, and we were using these vendors more often to make sure we can meet quota demands.
Okay, so this wasn't necessarily something that was unexpected. It looked like it was approved in July, and
Yes.
now we need
Yes,
another
we
increase.
tested out the model basically and shown it to be successful, and now we
Okay.
need to increase the amount that we're using them to stay
Okay.
up with demand.
And then how does that differ from 4G? Is it the same?
So 4G is outsourced vendors. These are like the OEM manufacturers that we send vehicles out for repairs or warranty work, stuff like that. The difference here is we lose these vehicles for days, if not weeks, when we send them out.
Okay.
So to be able to turn these vehicles overnight time, we need vehicles to be able to, our vendors to be able to come on site and help us out, so we don't have to send them out, sit in their queues to get labor done on them, because we just don't have enough spare vehicles to send them all out.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sounds good.
Great. All right, council, anything else before we go to the staff presentations? All right, Mr. Brady.
Yeah, so we have about 3, and so we'll invite, is Lance here? Oh, there's Lance. Lance will cover 4B, the Hibbert Street Garage.
All right, good morning. Sorry, trying to get the presentation up for Lance. Beth Heuning, City Engineer, and I have with me Assistant City Engineer Lance Webb. He's been shepherding this project, and so he's going to tell you all about it this morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. We're here to talk about the Hibbert Garage renovation improvements. Just to kind of touch on, we purchased this at the end of 2023. Really early this year, started some efforts on that with assessment, and then moved into design. Some of the project improvements that we have with this, we're doing a conversion from the storage parking from the old Brown and Brown facility to a public parking facility. With these improvements, we expect 871 parking stalls, 600 of those of which will be used for city staff and consolidating our staff from the Centennial Garage, Sarine, and the Pepper Garage. Other improvements that we'll be doing, we'll be putting some storefront entrances on the southeast and southwest corners of this property where we expect a lot of staff to be moving from City Hall to that parking garage. And then also we'll be putting in some vehicular access and entry with a flex lane in the center. Ingress and egress on this facility is at the east side there on Hibbert, the only entrance and exit that we have. And then that middle lane that we'll be adding there is kind of a flex lane. We'll have traffic moving in and out in the afternoon. Being a little older facility, there are some structural improvements that we need to make on this facility. Some of the things that we'll be doing with this include primarily some aesthetic improvements and then some minor structural improvements to the garage. One of the things that we'll be adding to this project for improvements is architectural features on the exterior of this with screened LED color changing lighting to kind of dress up the exterior of this. And then we'll be putting in some electrical upgrades for the garage, both for the garage and for future stub outs for potential EV in the future. Other improvements that we'll be making with having the public there, we want safety is at the forefront. We'll be doing higher density CCTV cameras in the interior and exterior of that building, upgrading and updating the mechanical and fire suppression and fire protection systems. And then we'll be dressing up landscaping improvements on the exterior of Hibbert side of the garage. These are the construction costs that we have. We contracted with Kitchell Construction. The total construction for this is a little over $7.2 million. The funding for this comes from the Brown and Brown purchase, parking garage, proceeds sales, one-time revenues, and that's a little over $7 million. And then the additional funding we're asking on this comes from the general fund at $2.2 million. These are some renderings for the garage on the east side of Hibbert, the exterior, what that might look like for staff entering and exiting the site during the daytime. This is a view of the Hibbert garage on the storage or the storefront on the Hibbert side of the garage. And then just a general overview of the schedule. Again, we purchased this building at the end of 2023. We've been in design, just recently completed that. We're going to GMP to the council here September 9th. The first phase of this will be what we call operational, using the facility in early March of next year. And then second phase is to dress the exterior, what I alluded to, the aesthetics on the exterior of the building, May of 25. And then we have some longer lead items for the elevator and the electrical upgrades that we'll be doing. Those will complete December of 2025.
So, Mayor and Council, this is a long day in coming. I've been working on this project since Brown and Brown left the site. So part of the history here is that one of the reasons we have the $5 million is because we own the land under which this parking garage was built. And at the time that they then left or stopped selling cars, using as a car dealership, then we received back some of the money. We recall when we purchased this back from Brown and Brown for the actual improvements, we spent, was it $8.5 million, Jeff, is that what you said? $8.5 million plus the, what are we at, 7.2?
7.2.
for how many parking spaces?
8 million for the purchase and 871 parking spaces.
So if you do that math, that's a really good deal for what we would pay for a parking garage, right? It gets us, I think, below $25,000 a parking space, quite a bit.
Right, so I think per stall, we're at about 17,000.
17,000. So, I mean, today you can't build it for probably $35,000, $40,000, $40,000. So, and then what this helps us to do is that Lance kept referring to the public, but the public, the really important public for us that this targeted is city employees. We'll be able to consolidate the employees into this parking garage, make sure I get them all right. The Pepper Street garage, the Centennial garage, and
Serine.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to bring all of those employees, and then some, right, Jeff, from the, well, I guess of the Pepper Street, I mentioned Pepper Street. So that'll help bring all those employees into one facility. That's why you see us being very thoughtful about, or at least intentional about, the cameras, the lighting, really trying to make sure this is a safe place for our employees. And then by freeing up the spaces in the Pepper Street garage, that's going to help downtown. It's going to help with redevelopment projects such as, I don't know, have we have another name besides Grid 2? I'm not sure. Eco Mesa East. Yeah. So, not Grid, sorry. We don't want to, we don't do grids anymore.
We're not going to go there.
We're not going there. Sorry. Eco Mesa 2. So, this is really going to help us bring all their employees. So we have one of the number one complaint or concern that I hear from employees when I go out and meet with them is about parking and the safety and the concern by many of our employees, especially they get here early. There's a lot of our employees are very concerned about the experience going into these garages where we just don't have a strong presence, and whether it's homeless people sleeping in the stairwells or people sleeping in between the cars or people wandering around through the cars. So we're really trying to work very hard to make this garage the city for downtown, where the majority of city employees will be able to park, and we're trying to make it very safe, lit up. It's the bones of this are pretty good, right, Lance?
Yeah.
And so it's, but it was used as for the car dealership. And so you kind of stack the cars one behind each other. So we're kind of having to rethink, and this was not obviously built for, getting people in and out because it only has one way in. So we're having to kind of figure that out. But, and also we're setting aside additional spaces for the public on the first floor for general public as they come down for activities downtown. So I think this is really going to help morale. It's going to help us deal with a concern for our city employees by having this location. And then the other thing we wanted to do, as if any of us have driven up and down Main Street, this facade of this parking garage is pretty dominant, right? It's it extends for, I don't know how many feet that is.
Nearly a full block.
It's a long distance, and it's aged, it's faded. We felt like we would like to kind of create some kind of experience with that front. And so, as Lance mentioned, what we're adding to the front, it's simply really a mesh material, metal mesh material that frames up that you can then shine lights up into it. So it gives us some kind of 3D effect, so you don't have this flat surface going on. So we were just trying to think of something that we could do, as a city of Mesa, acquiring this property to kind of elevate the experience of that long block. So we didn't want to really change the facade itself directly of the building. So we just, I think Lance, someone found this application that we think would be unique and allow us to do something kind of different for downtown and create that experience coming in. So we're excited that we're able to get this make this available for the employees. And then by getting out of those other parking garages, we think that'll stimulate additional growth in downtown also. So thank you.
Thank you. So the number of spaces 500 or so for employees, couple hundred for,
The general public.
for general public?
Yes, so total 871 as a conversion, and then 600 for employees.
When it was Brown and Brown, it was like 1,200.
Yeah.
They could get like 1,200
Yeah,
cars or
it's-
something like in there.
It was pretty stacked.
So the public parking, is that on the main floor?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
And that will be just open, available to the public, and you just pay with a credit card and come, or is it free general public parking?
We will work through that. We're going to have to figure through that mechanism. We're thinking that after, like the parking lots we have here, that after a certain time, it's just,
Right.
it's available free parking for the public, so. Yeah.
In weekends or.
It would be free too, yeah, so.
With no
All right.
employees on weekends, right?
Well, employees could park there, but the idea is it would just be, the gates would open. So, we're going to have a security you get in. So we've got to figure out how we're going to deal with the public coming in. Yeah.
Okay, I see a lot of blue buttons. Let's start with Mr. Freeman.
Well, thank you for doing this. This is long needed for parking for downtown Mesa. And having been in the garage numerous times with the car dealership, it's a little funky the way it's laid out.
Yep.
And it's not really conducive to public parking or any type of parking, but glad that we have it because it'll give additional parking for the public. One thing I didn't see in the presentation is there signage for public parking, so that we can denote public parking here.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if I caught drift of it. Was there any solar included on top of the very top? You can park up above on the top deck. Are we including any solar components for generation for our downtown electric company?
Yeah, a good question, Councilmember Freeman. Some of the things that we're doing is we do have the access there as gated, and then it will be, there's some flexibility there for that. But yes, we will include signage for the public to park in that area. As of right now, we don't have solar for that. That was something we evaluated as part of our assessment with the garage, and that structurally it can handle that, but it is not included with this.
We just didn't put it in this cost, but I think that upper deck, we think would be ideal for that as a possibility as we're kind of going through the parking lots, on the surface parking. That would certainly be a candidate that we'd look at in the future.
Well, I would hope that we would include the infrastructure for any future development for solar on top, because we're trying for more renewable energy in our portfolio. So this makes perfect sense in covering that whole thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's
So
good.
I think including, as you go through the design, is we have everything there for solar and then work with our utility company.
Yeah, that was something that we structurally evaluated when we purchased it and came back in to assess the feasibility of putting solar there. So-
It's got good bones on it. It's solid concrete all the way around, so I'm sure it could manage that.
Okay, we'll look at that for the.
Thank you.
Alicia?
Just one question. So I think this is a great project. Obviously, the cost savings alone is very important, and moving all the employees to one central location that's safe and convenient is great. But it begs the question about the three that are freed up, the three parking you said will become probably public parking.
Well, so for
downtown,
example,
or-
Pepper will be in discussions with Eco Mesa 2 about the possibility of leasing or licensing some of that space for their tenants, if they are their individuals that will be there. Plus, it'll provide for additional parking for the downtown merchants.
Okay.
So
And-
that's, go ahead.
And do we own all three of those?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we do.
Because, the safety issue won't go away, right? So whether it's our employees or the public,
Yeah.
it's not over. So that's something that we're going to
We're to continue to look at. I think the one that we probably get the most complaints about is Serine.
Serine.
And and to me, it would be hopeful, we're still waiting to kind of see the fact that you park there and then you can shuttle back to the city, it's just, there's not like a constant presence at that location. I think that's part of our challenge. But yeah, we need to go back and look at that and see how that works. I would love for something to happen with the buildings that MCC owns around that parking garage and bring in more tenants and more activity. I think that would help. But yes, we will have to look at that. The other parking garage is really what's adjacent to the Art Center. And we don't have as many problems there. The problems we have is that when there are events at the Art Center during the day, during the week, graduations, whatever, there's a conflict of the parking because we've got all our employees in there. So frankly, that's going to help us avoid the conflicts that we sometimes have with that parking garage and the events taking place at the downtown or the Art Center. So.
Thank you.
Frankie, did you have a question? Okay. Mr. Summers? Councilmember Duff or Spilsbury, any question? Oh, I'm sorry. Julie, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I raised my hand way before any of these other people that just got to. I'm just kidding.
Not in the room called on that.
I know. I guess when you're not there in person, then you have to deal with that. A lot of my questions got answered in that discussion. I just wanted to ask, because I liked the idea before where we talked about adding a new entrance into that corner, like on the west side, so that it was closer for the employees to walk and they didn't have to walk around the edge. Is that still part of the plan?
Southwest.
Yeah, so there'll be storefronts on the southeast and southwest corners. The intent there was primarily to allow for shuttling or providing access for staff to the closest point of getting to.
Yeah, Councilor, you're correct. Well, the employees are not going to have to walk back out to Hibbert to get out. They'll be able to come out the door over there on that southwest corner. And we're going to make it so that it's intentionally designed that way to encourage the employees. And we'll have the shuttles, if individuals need the shuttles, coming at that corner also.
It puts employees quickly out onto Main Street with a lot of visibility
Yes,
right there.
yeah.
That was important.
Yeah, for safety issues, obviously. I know you probably all think it's because I don't want them to have to walk any farther, but but really just for safety issues. I'm super excited about this. I've been waiting for this. I think it's gonna be incredible. I have multiple times been at the Mesa Art Center during the day when there's no parking to be found. And anyway, so I think this is gonna be great. Thank you so much for all the work on it.
Great. Other comments? I'll just say I remember, and Julie gives me a hard time about that, so that I remember when we used to say we aspire to have a parking problem in downtown Mesa. And it's fun to see that we have a downtown parking problem because of all the activity that's happening. Oh, Councilmember Duff.
Yes, thank you. I'm equally excited, and it's a long time coming, and thank you for, getting it to this point. I just wanted to confirm that the coordination on, it says you're not going to be ready to park in it until March, and that we're going to coordinate that with the Eco Mesa East construction, so there's no displacement.
Yes.
Yes.
Jeff is nodding his head. We will do that.
Okay, I just want to confirm that for anybody listening, and there's a lot of concern about that coordination.
Point.
And would it be a consideration to add solar maybe on the Pepper Garage, so then we'll have some covered parking on that very top?
Yeah, I think, listen, Mayor and Council, every opportunity where we can evaluate that, we'll continue to look through the opportunities to do that on these parking garages, where I think right now we're kind of going through the surface parking first because that provides shade, and then we can add both of these to the list for the future. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Just, Chris, just one other question on the solar. We just entered into a solar agreement with some other company just recently on some of our city-owned facilities. Maybe we could dual task and have them kind of do an assessment on whether or not how to put solar on this type of garage, and, kind of dual and put them in there, Scott. So maybe we could do that, and just during the construction phase, you start this process too.
Yeah, I think our goal is to, and because it's on the roof, I don't know, I'll let someone answer the question, but I think our goal is to try to get, as Councilmember Duff is suggesting, we really do want to try to get employees in this parking garage as quickly as possible. And then being able to add the solar on the roof, be able to do that without interfering too much with having access to the parking, so. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Mayor, Council. Just to touch on the solar real quick. So we have the agreement with Solon that we're doing the main library, and we've got the 6th Street Service Center that we're working on. We're in contract negotiations, talking about the Mesa Art Center and a project there at the parking lot on the south side of the Mesa Art Center. And then we have gotten a lot of requests from departments, employees on like what the next phase would be then. So we're currently putting together, sites that might make sense so that we can walk through with some of the solar vendors and look at that next site. But we're taking small bites right now. We've got under contract and trying to figure out the parking plan for employees for the projects that are gonna happen this winter, and then trying to finish a contract with that same solar provider for the Mesa Art Center. And then we'll be moving on.
But Scott,
to
you
this
could
next part.
have contractors start to at least look at the feasibility of these locations.
Yeah, and we have previously, it's probably been about a decade since we looked at those parking structures. It isn't as simple as it seems with the drive aisles and having to have the steel go across. It's a little bit more complicated than what I thought it would be when we first looked at it 10 years ago. So that's one of the reasons why it hasn't been done yet, because it was a little bit more complicated, and anytime it's more complicated, it's more expensive. So we've been trying to get some of the lower hanging fruit, so to speak.
Well, then just find a solution, Scott.
I will work with Lance on that solution.
Well, I think just as a council, we hear our chief complaint is downtown is parking. As we know, parking is an issue for the property owners and the businesses, and we just need to provide additional parking. And
Yep.
I've heard a lot of it in the last couple of weeks from downtown ownership. But, with that, we just have to have a plan, implement it, and then we have a good solution. And hopefully we reach out to some of the property owners and get their input.
Yep.
But these are city-owned assets.
Yeah,
I
so,
get it.
and we're essentially adding over, once this is completed, over 600 parking spaces to downtown that we didn't have before. I mean, they were here, but they were being used for a car dealership. Now we'll be able to pull the employees out of these other parking garages and free up that space with this parking garage.
Really a great opportunity in a downtown that's already developed, so.
Great.
Well, since Mark already brought it up about the parking issue, I do have a question then. If we do say we have a parking problem, and maybe this is for Jeff, we have these large lots in between Robson, McDonald, and Drew. They're huge. Every time I'm in there, there's hardly any cars. Is there some reason people cannot park there? So when we say we don't have enough parking and those are nearly empty, I guess I'm a little confused about that. And how many, like hundreds?
It's a perceived parking problem. It's
Okay.
not an actual space problem. It's that people don't see that as parking, in my mind.
It's a
kind of
signage issue, they don't know it's
Well,
there?
there you go. Now go ahead, Jeff.
Mayor, Councilmember Goforth, I wholeheartedly agree with Chris that we have 5,000 public parking spaces in structured parking. We have 10,000 public parking spaces in downtown in general. The problem is that some of them aren't where people expect them or need them to be or want them to be, but there is also this real issue of we don't do a good enough job of advertising that there is public parking available. We are, to that point, we are currently working on a signage program to get public parking signs up on the garages, but then once you're at the garages in the parking lots, once you're in there, that there's going to be essentially a welcome sign. Here's the rules, because I have personally experienced seeing cars drive by me and go past a spot that has a permit sign on it because they aren't reading the small print that says it's available after 5 o'clock and on weekends. And so we have a ton of parking that's available that people just don't realize is there.
Yeah.
And we need to do a better job of getting people there.
It seems like maybe that needs to be a priority.
Yes.
I know
Yes,
you have
we
a
agree.
lot going on, but this continues to be brought up,
Yep.
so.
No, we agree.
Okay.
And not to get too far down this topic, but we do have our micromobility consultants that are coming into town in the next 2 weeks, and that is going to be part of their charge as well, is to help us with the wayfinding, the broader program.
That's great. Thank you, Jeff.
And I see Jen's hands up, but really quickly, I thought we were working on an app. Didn't we have a presentation over a year ago about an
yeah.
app for how to get the parking in downtown? What happened to that?
I have to let IT, I can't remember what came of it. It didn't quite work as well as I think we were anticipating, I think. Oh, Scott. And Scott came well after this, so I don't.
We are indeed working on a technology for smart parking and have been in the background piloting this. It's not ready for prime time yet.
Okay.
There are bugs that need to be worked out, but it is something that is actively being tested.
Okay, I just didn't want to lose track of that since we were talking about parking and all
It
that.
could be part of the solution. Yeah, thanks, Scott.
I'll just say on this, since I might as well chime in, I'm really pleased with working on the aesthetic of this. I think it sets a standard for this community that says how things look matter, you know, and starting with our public infrastructure, whether it's the library in my district, which looks fantastic, or taking just, you know, an ordinary utilitarian building, which is parking, and adding elements to it that make it look better, it sends a message to the wider community that we care what this city looks like. And we need to continue to do that. So I'm really happy that we're spending some time looking at what our structures, how they appear to the public. So I'm pleased with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Duff.
Yes, just to chime in a little bit. Sometimes I think in downtown we have a perceived, yes, there are parking issues, but sometimes it's very concentrated in certain places. And there was a comment made at a community meeting about how great, Gilbert was in their parking and having their parking garage. And I appreciate that we're doing this garage, but one thing I started thinking about is Gilbert, as a comparison, is centralized. First of all, the downtown is not that large, a couple of blocks, really, and they have one centralized garage. Everybody knows that you can park there, right? So it's like a known thing. Here, we have parking, but you have to know the downtown to figure it out. And even for me, sometimes I know all the places to park, but you get parking fatigue. I check this place, that's not available. I'll go to this place, it's not available. I'll go to this place, and then I can find a place. But sometimes you just want to give up and searching all the possibilities. So I think having this app where you could just scan it and say, oh, there's 5 spaces over in that garage or in that parking lot, that's great. I can go there and not spend 5 minutes driving around trying to find the place that's appropriate for that day. And there's a lot of other, opinions on parking. And we'll get into that when Jeff does that parking study. But I just want to say sometimes because our parking is not consolidated in one place, yes, we have garages, we have surface, it's kind of distributed through our downtown, that there'll be certain lots and certain places that there is very little parking, but people don't know where those other alternatives are. And if they do, maybe they get tired of continuing the search. So, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think this solves the problem for a minute, but 51 to 55, and we were still hoping to construct a major building there at some point in the future that will change our parking demands. And I keep thinking that still ultimately we're going to need a Drew lot parking structure as downtown continues to flesh out. So, but I think these are great steps towards solving the problem, and appreciate the good work that's gone into this.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brady. What else? What other presentations?
So the next few items that we're going to combine them together. Well, you know what? Candace, since you need to leave early, should we just go out of order? Okay, so we're going to jump to 5D through F. So Candace, you'll do that, and then Kathy, we'll have you come up and do 5A through C.
All right. Well, good morning, Mayor and Council. This morning, the next 2 presentations are good news stories, and so we both need to bring that to you. And so this is really an overview of, there are 3 agenda items on your agenda for Monday that are IGAs with Maricopa County. And it is for us to receive funds for particular projects that we have. The 3 projects in question are Mesa Firefighter Memorial Park, Idea Museum exhibit enhancements, and the Mesa Historical Museum. So I'm just going to give you an overview of what we're going to do, what the funding is. So Mesa Firefighter Memorial Park is a new park designation. It is a space that already exists today. We did have a presentation to council back in November that kind of gave the specifics about what it is today and what we want to transform it into. The total project is a $480,000 project. We had the funds through some bonds for general fund for part of the project through parks. And then we had some community events that were happening, so community fundraising. We were short about $100,000 of that $480,000. And Maricopa County has stepped up to use some of their community funds to augment that and to complete that project. And so it will actually be designated once we go through the upgrade of the memorial area, adding flags and seats and so forth. It'll actually be designated as a City of Mesa park now. Today it is adjacent to Fire Station 201, so it's really kind of just the landscaping area by 201. After this, it will be designated as a City of Mesa park. The second item is the Idea Museum, and that is under renovation right now. It's got some phases going on right now where we're doing some construction. But they couldn't afford all of the events, all of the items and exhibits that they wanted to do as part of that. And so when we sent them the list of, these are the types of items that we weren't able to do today, we were hoping to get future funding for, we did receive $200,000 in funding from Maricopa County for particular exhibits. We've got a few here, some examples. One of them is a stop motion animation station. So it's really pretty cool. If you look at the pictures on the bottom, it allows kids to take real things, right, and put them on a board, and it creates an animated story from it. So they're actually creating art, if you will, by using items that they can touch and feel. So we'll be getting a lot of those. Another item is over on the right are some musical instruments that we already have. So if you haven't seen them outside of the Idea Museum, we have an installation already. They're musical instruments. You can see kind of look like flowers, look like vegetation. So you can go over there and kind of play with those. But this will actually allow us to do more of that, as well as putting a mural on our large. We have a very large, where the sign for Idea Museum, it's a very large kind of concrete tower. Right now, very plain, needs to be repainted. We're actually going to put a mural on that, so to kind of grab attention from Main Street that you know the Idea Museum is back there. What's still under investigation is the ceiling. We have a very cool, Jared's come up with a very cool ceiling installation where people can interact with it and change it and make it do different things. But that is still under investigation to make sure that we have the trusses are correct and that type of a thing. So that's one of the things we'll be investigating with this money as well. The last one is the Mesa Historical Museum. This is the Lehigh Auditorium renovation. So just as a reminder, the Mesa Historical Museum is owned and operated by the Mesa Historical Society. It is not a City of Mesa asset, although we have a partnership and we do have annual funding that we provide to them for the operations, so that they also do public events, make it available to the public for the history of Mesa. They currently have a campaign, a capital campaign to, if you see the Lehigh Auditorium on the left-hand side is the state it's in today, which is uninhabitable. It's not allowed to be used for any type of purposes today. So it's a major campaign in the community. We are actually partnering, both Maricopa County and the City of Mesa are contributing to pieces of that restoration. So Maricopa County, for their $50,000, is going to be covering the cost of the new air conditioner units for that building. There are 6 that operate on this building. City of Mesa will be using our staff to do the installation of those. And then we'll be doing some other things with them as well to help them on their capital campaign. But they have a very large community capital campaign, so if there's anybody in the community who is interested in doing this, then they can go to their website and look how they can do that as well. But that's what these will go toward. So we do want to extend our appreciation to our partnership with Maricopa County. This really kind of came out of the blue. It was really instigated by Maricopa County contacting us and saying we're really interested. County Supervisor Thomas Galvin came and took some tours of some of our assets, realized the things that we had and the opportunities we have to really enhance our community experience. And he gave some interest in a couple of ours, and we offered up a couple more items that maybe he might be interested in as well. And with that, we were able to put this together. So the Maricopa County has authorized this allocation to the city of Mesa. On Monday night are the 3 IGAs that give us approval to enter an IGA with Maricopa County. And then the county will then approve the IGAs if and when this council approves our IGAs on our side. There's one other item. It's not on the agenda because it is a lower dollar amount. So it does not require an IGA. So the city manager will talk to you about that when he does his announcements this morning.
So Mayor Council, I just want to thank Candace, working with the county manager specifically, was when she kind of got, knew that the Supervisor Galvan was interested in finding some projects in Mesa. She really jumped on it and worked with Candace to help us identify the projects and get all the processing in place to do this. So this is pretty exciting for us. There's a lot of these community projects that are kind of are needed that last, whatever, mile of dollars, whatever you want to say it. So this is very helpful, and we're very excited about the investment of the county and the interest they have in what's happening in Mesa. So we're excited to bring this to council.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman.
So I want to thank the supervisor for this. I had the opportunity to meet with him and discuss these projects, and he had some one-time funding available. And so having a firefighter memorial park is really advantageous for our community and a memorial for our firefighters. And we've had 10 line of duty deaths that will be going on there. So that's something significant to our public safety personnel. So I appreciate that. And it's been, that other $100,000 put us over the threshold to complete this project. And I see the fencing up already. That's awesome. And I'd like to see the demolition here soon. I'm sure there's a timeline for that. And then I know the Mesa Historical Museum is so excited about this because they can continue their renovation. I don't think they have a roof yet, but the air conditioning units are on there, so they're working around. The roof was deteriorated pretty bad, so they have to replace that. And then, as you know, the exterior of the auditorium is really bad. Plus, it was built as a bomb shelter back in about 1937, and it was all with concrete, and some of the wood they used for the concrete pouring is actually in the ceiling as well, so it's kind of neat to see all that. But yeah, these are exciting projects, and I'm thankful that we're able to get them done, especially the IDEA Museum. I know when Mayor and I used to go there, it was bashes back in the day.
That's true. That's true.
Show you where we tied our horses up, right?
After going to the post.
Yeah.
That's where I got my animal crackers from.
Oh, there you go.
And Mayor and Councilmember Freeman, when it comes to the to Lehigh Auditorium, one of the other things I neglected to say is that will become the permanent location of the play ball exhibit. So that really is the history of baseball in the state of Arizona. So that will be a really cool historical area.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great. Yeah, these are wonderful ideas that have been kicking around for years, and it's great to see. We really appreciate Supervisor Galvan coming in and making the difference to get these things across the finish line. So we need to make sure he knows how much we appreciate his involvement in this. Council, anything else on this? All right, thank you very much.
All right, Mayor, just we have one more presentation. We'll ask Kathy McDonald to come forward. This is for items 5A through 5C. Oh, and Chris.
Yes. Good morning, Mayor, Council. We're going to build on Candace's theme, so I'm here with Kathy McLaughlin, Water Resources Planning Advisor. So you're hearing a lot about cost escalation, but this is a good story because it's grant money coming in to help offset some of those costs. So since Kathy did so much work on it, it's only fair for her to be able to talk about these projects.
I'm very lucky to do so. Good morning, Mayor and Council. So these are grant funding that we're receiving and asking authorization to receive through the congressional directed spending process. You'll recognize yourselves in this photo with Representative Stanton and the giant faux check that he gave us a photo opportunity earlier this spring on that very hot day. These are those same funds, but we do have to go through a lengthy process to receive those funds. So I just wanted to point that out and express our thanks to our federal delegation who supported us in this process. So Representative Stanton, of course, and also Senators Kelly and Sinema. So congressional directed spending, this is an opportunity for members of Congress to submit for funding for community projects in their states. We submit applications to congressional offices and then work with congressional staff to strengthen those applications to get through the federal appropriations process. This is a very competitive process. So the fact that we got 3 projects through on fiscal year 24 appropriations is pretty amazing that we were able to do that. We secured $2.76 million in funding for 3 separate projects. We do have a 20% match on those projects. However, we were planning on doing those projects anyway, so it worked out and it's okay. These funds are actually administered through the EPA. Once they get through appropriations, because of the nature of the projects, they're administered through the EPA and go through our agency's state and tribal assistance grants drinking water state revolving fund. And so what we're doing now is completing paperwork with the EPA to be able to receive that funding. So the first project that we want to talk about today is we are receiving $1 million towards the Desert Well project. This will equip a well that will have the capacity to pump 2.8 million gallons per day, and it serves as backup for when our treatment plants are down, if we have a canal outage, or to meet increased demand. This is specifically for Southeast Mesa. And there's a really exciting picture of a well there for you to look at.
Kathy, just the approximate location of that well?
We are applying for Desert Well 24. However, Chris, you could probably give a better
Sure,
location on that.
it's west of Signal Butte. So it's north of Elliott, and it's west of Signal Butte.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty close to the plant.
I was going to say, it's right there, close to that corner. Okay.
And the well's already been drilled, so this money will help us equip that well.
And depending on when we actually receive the funds, if we don't get it in time for Desert Well 24, we can apply it to any of the new wells that we're drilling in that area. The next project is smart meters. I know you've heard a lot about smart meters, so I don't really need to get into that too much, but we're getting $800,000, and this is specifically towards the purchase of 9,560 3/4-inch meters.
Is it coming to the east side?
Well,
We're starting west, right? Oh, there,
right, we're starting west, more in the center of town, and we're moving, the whole strategy is to eliminate routes as efficiently as possible, because we're finding other jobs for our meter readers, and the quicker we just have that downward descent on getting rid of the meter reader positions, we're saving a lot of money operationally, and then we're moving people into positions where we need help.
And replacing older infrastructure. So there's a method to this madness. I'm just looking forward to this coming to the east side of town as well. As you know, I had a little issue at my house the other day, and I was interested in this. 9,000 gallons supposedly we had used at our house, and we were trying to figure out whether it was myself or my wife that left the toilet running, right? You know, when the chain gets all hung up, because that uses a heck of a lot of water. Turns out it was a misread. And so we actually only used, I think, 3,000. So that, we were freaking out a little bit,
Sure.
like, where is this water going? And
that's the nice thing about a smart meter, is it takes the human error out of it, so.
It takes the human error out, but it also helps you track.
Yeah,
as
you
a
can see it.
homeowner.
Right. Yeah, that's
And
true.
we've gone over this before, but the ability to have this on your house to say, hey, connects to your phone and said, you're running a lot of water right now, and to go around and look at your house and see maybe your landscaping is broken or one of the toilet chains got hung up, because it's unbelievable how much water that uses when that happens. To be able to do that in real time is huge. And when I saw a 9,000 gallon use, and I don't have a pool, I'm like, where did all that water go? And I've heard that in my community from time to time. Unfortunately, in this case, it was just the difference between a 9 and a 4 on reading happens, and it got fixed, but I'm looking forward to this program. So I'm very glad that we got the money for this. And I'm advocating for the east side. Get something.
Well, the contractor's making great momentum right now, so we're encouraged.
How long to replace all of them, do we think?
It'll be in 2026.
That's not too far out. Okay.
So this grant money for this 800,000 is specifically for 3/4-inch residential meters. So like I was saying, 9,560, depending if the cost changes between now and the time we receive the money. And here's a picture of a smart meter being tested in our meter shop. And then we're receiving $959,752 towards water main inspection and improvements project. This will be for our Falcon Water Service area, approximately 8 miles of water transmission main to inspect and replace. And this will help us maximize operational efficiency in that particular area.
Yeah, we have a big project this coming winter. So those 8 miles, we're gonna get into those pipes. So these are the big transmission mains. We'll go in with high-tech equipment. We'll x-ray the pipe. We'll visually inspect it. And then any defects, we'll take care of it while the pipe's dewatered. And then we'll also install access points for future inspection. And that's gonna happen here just in a few months from now, and this money will help with that.
So to sum up.
Kathy, before you, what
Yeah.
is the cost of that you're talking about? How would this?
About $8 million.
How many?
8 million.
Okay, and so this basically 1 million will offset the 8 million?
Correct.
Okay.
It feels like it's a drop in the bucket, pun totally intended there. But it's a small amount compared to the total cost of the project, but it's $2.75 million. So it's still significant funds that we'll be receiving for this, and anytime we can get money for free, we're gonna try and we're gonna do it. We submitted applications for.
Go ahead.
We submitted applications for next fiscal year appropriations. We submitted for 2 projects, and so far we have one that is moving through. It's $1.5 million for sewer line inspection and replacement, but we won't know till the appropriations process is finished, so it'll be a few months, but we have our champions and our federal delegation, and they support us, so we're hoping that project will go through.
I for one, don't mind. I know it seems like a drop in the bucket here, of roughly 1 million out of the 8. I wouldn't even mind making this additive to the 8 million we've already budgeted for it, because this project is that important. I mean, stopping the loss of water by replacing old infrastructure, I mean, it's absolutely essential for that, one. And two, if you see some of these old pipes, like I'm looking at this one, and think, well, this one, hopefully that's not drinking water. Is that a drinking water pipe?
It's a drinking water pipe, but what you're not seeing is the mortar has been all chipped away. So there's a lot more to that pipe. You're just looking at like the middle of the cross-section.
I think it's also, I'd argue it's improving the quality of the water that's delivered to homes, because this is gross, really, to use a technical term in the industry. So replacing these, replacing this, even if we spent the 8 million that we were planning anyway and added $1 million to it, I'd be in support of that, so.
Just a quick question too. You said this is going to start this winter?
Yes, going into late fall.
And will there be any disruptions or anything to the public or any, I mean, how was that?
Right, Mayor, Council Member, go for it. There'll be some disruption. There'll be there'll be a point where we need to open up the pavement. We'll have traffic control, and then we'll take care of the issue there, and then we'll move on down. So it'll be a moving targets, if you will.
And you said that's in the Falcon area, so that will be in my district, I'm assuming.
All around the
that's what
Falcon
you're
area.
saying?
Yes, close to the Val Vista water treatment plant, so northern part
Okay.
of Central Mesa.
Okay.
Yeah, I support that.
I think that's more you.
We can,
Yeah, that may be.
Mark, but
we can work with you guys.
I'm just wondering as far as noticing people and, you know.
It's me.
Yeah, let's say, you come around the top now.
we'll work with you on updates or notices on traffic control, so you have a
That's
heads
around the
up.
water treatment plant, that's D1. If it's further,
It's southeast of the Val Vista plant.
So, right, getting close to the edge there. We'll talk to both of you.
Yeah.
are you talking around Boeing? I'm sorry. Are you talking around the Boeing area or between like Greenfield to
That's-
Higley and that area?
Yeah, that's part of it because it's not just one single transmission main, it's several mains that are scattered throughout that area.
We'll get it, yeah.
So maybe it's my district. Do I get it? If it's southeast.
Could all be blessed with a piece.
Jill, you have your fair share right now.
I know. We'll take it.
Mayor and Council, if I could also mention that the city of Mesa actually has lower than average water loss for mainline breaks in the nation. And so we're doing really, really well. We have less than 5% water loss in our system each year, but we want to tighten that up as much as possible, so this funding helps us further projects to do that.
And to clear up the minutes, did I call you Kathy McLaughlin?
You did.
Kathy McDonald.
McDonald.
I'm going to hear about that more at the office today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
She was nice not to call you out loud.
Yeah.
Great, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
This is a great presentation. Again, we appreciate, last item was thanking our county supervisor. This item is thanking our congressional delegation, and particularly Representative Stanton. So that's great to see them stepping up and helping us with these problems.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brady, any other presentations?
Not on
tonight's
the
agenda?
council agenda, Mayor. I think we are, we've completed all our presentations for that. We are, when you're ready, we will have obviously presentations for the study session item.
Okay, great. Moving on then, the next item on our agenda for this meeting, item 2A, is a presentation on building code amendments for electric vehicle chargers.
Come on up.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. As part of the past conversations and discussion with the City Council, and also with our research and demand of what's going on, we've been working on ways to amend our building code and in the future come back with a zoning code to incorporate electric vehicle charging stations as part of our development standards. We've had various conversations with the development community and all various stakeholders for the past months. We've also done extensive research about what the other jurisdictions are doing as well. So with that, John has been leading this effort, so I'll pass it on to him for the presentation.
Morning, Mayor, Council. Our presentation today will cover kind of the basics of EV chargers, what other cities are requiring with respect to installing EV chargers in new single-family and multifamily residential, feedback we've received from single and multifamily builders, and then the recommendations for the amendments to the building codes. So with the basics, there's 3 different types of chargers. There's what's known as level 1. This will plug into your typical outlet in the house, same outlet you'd plug in, TV or toaster. And with that circuit, it can take over a day to get a full charge on an electric vehicle. So what comes with the vehicles when you buy them is a level 2 charger. And these plug into the same type of outlet as an electric dryer. And with extra power, you're able to charge a vehicle overnight 100%. So equivalent, if it's a gas car, it would be like leaving the house every day with a full tank. So there's certainly an advantage to that. And then, of course, there's the level 3 chargers, which are kind of like Tesla superchargers you see in parking lots where you can charge up half a battery in a matter of minutes. Today, we're going to focus specifically on just the level 2 chargers. So with the chargers, there's the installation, and there's also 3 levels of installation. There's what's known as EV capable. And really, EV capable is just the backbone or infrastructure that would support retrofitting chargers later. For example, in a single family house, This would involve a raceway from your electrical panel to the interior of the garage. That way, the advantage there is if you want to retrofit, it's easy to pull the wire through there and not have to fish it through the wall, cut into your walls, have to patch and paint potentially. And so it saves a lot of costs and just makes it easy to retrofit. In the case of an apartment or multifamily, it would run from electrical panel to parking space. And of course, the advantage being retrofitting could involve tearing up parking lot, asphalt, landscaping, et cetera. So obviously the cost savings is significant to just pull wire and retrofit a charger.
I'm sorry, before you move off of that, EV capable would mean that the electric supply is the grid, or the capacity is there. We just need to break up the concrete and install the equipment.
So this involves tapping into, usually for a house, existing panel. So this would just run from the existing panel.
Right.
Same with the apartments. They'll typically run from the existing equipment that they have to power the complex. And that would be a circuit that would run from that SES, the electrical service, to a parking space.
So if it's EV capable, does that mean that the power is there? I mean, for example, in downtown Mesa, if it's EV capable, that means the City of Mesa Electric Company says, yes, we have the capacity. If you install the equipment, the electricity for that equipment will be there?
So to say EV capable is with respect to the infrastructure at a property. So it'd just be in a house, it would just be from your panel. It doesn't really tie into, downstream of that.
Okay.
So it's preparing for the installation of a charger. You would tap into an existing panel typically, or existing service at an apartment complex.
So might we still need a transformer in the neighborhood to have the juice?
Typically, like a single-family residence, standard today is a 200 amp service.
Right.
Usually, people add.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like for a multifamily.
For multifamily, there's larger. Let's put it this way. We talked to some of the builders, and what they said is they can usually tap off of their services up to about 20%. If 20% for parking spaces, when more than 20% of parking spaces are required to have chargers, that would require additional equipment where they'd have to have dedicated service equipment. Okay. So typically with, in a house with one charger, you just tap into the existing service. Same with apartments, they'd be designed to have the capacity if it exceeds, obviously a certain amount, then dedicated equipment could be necessary. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into what we've received from comments from the builders. But EV Ready is taking it one step further, where in addition to just basically that sleeve that runs from the panel to interior, it's trimmed out with the outlet, a circuit, and a circuit breaker. So it's ready to be plugged in. You can just plug in the charger and you're ready to go. Now, there's some advantage to EV capable in that some of the chargers require different size circuits, different size breakers. So if it's EV capable in a house, for example, you could match the circuit to the type of charger you have for your car. They're all level 2, but there's still different power grades of them. So that creates a little bit of flexibility to put in the EV capable. EV ready, you'd have to pick a breaker size, and then that may match perfectly with your charger, or you may have to change it later. And then the EV installed is, like you see in parking lots where it's full, ready to plug in. You just drive up and plug in your car.
So I have a question. John, to make this a little simpler for me, if I wanted to eliminate my electric dryer in my home and hang my clothes out on the back wall for drying, but I could convert, I'm just making fun of that. I could convert my electrical outlet 240 volt to a charging within my home.
I want to say you could.
You could do that because it's a separate circuit and breaker and everything dedicated for that item.
Yeah, these are required to be dedicated circuits. And so you wouldn't have both, to your point.
And then also, if I wanted to add an additional outlet for charging purposes from my SES, service entrant panel, then I would have to run conduit or whatever is required through a process and put a new outlet in there, specifically again with a circuit breaker for charging my EV.
Yes, Mayor, Councilman Freeman, correct. It would require the new circuit. The idea with having EV capable is installing that circuit after a house is built. It doesn't involve cutting into the walls, that you could just pull that circuit through that sleeve and tap right in. It's ready to, it's much further along and doesn't require destructive, construction to the house.
So I think to the mayor's point, on a multifamily or apartment complex, the power is probably taken to a meter where there's multiple meters there. And so from those meters and circuits goes to each individual apartment. So power would be there. And I think that what you're saying is the ownership could tap into that power there and then run a conduit over and put a charging station somewhere on the property.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That I just trying to help my brain out here. Thank you.
And from what we've seen, the other cities, what they're requiring right now for single family, Scottsdale requires the EV capable at each single family residence. Flagstaff's taken it a step further and requires the EV ready, which is that fully trimmed out. And with multifamily, it's kind of a spectrum ranging from 3 to 20%, and those percentages are percentage of required parking spaces. And there's a mix of installed, capable, and ready, kind of across the board from Scottsdale, Avondale, Flagstaff, and Tucson.
Are those the only cities that have amended their codes to this point? I thought I heard Glendale was involved, but.
At the time, this is the information we were able to pull. I
Okay.
think there's a lot of cities probably looking at this right now, so
Sure.
more are probably coming on board.
All right.
But nobody, for single family, these are the only two cities that have any sort of requirements on the books?
That we've seen.
Well, this slide says multifamily. Was there a previous slide about single? Okay. So just Scottsdale and Flagstaff right now mandate any, just addressing the issue during initial construction? Okay.
At the time of the survey, yes.
All right. And then those 4 cities have policies related to multifamily?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
So quick question, for single family, these cities, Scottsdale and Flagstaff, just requiring a 240 outlet in the garage?
Mayor, Councilmember Summers, Scottsdale's requiring the EV capable, so just the sleeve for retrofitting later. Flagstaff is requiring the EV ready, which is the full trim out with the circuit breaker, the circuit itself, and the outlet.
As long as we're on this topic, I've heard that the burden that this puts on, the financial burden it puts on the initial construction is really pretty modest. I mean, during initial construction that you're talking about an outlet and some obviously additional wiring, but I've heard it estimated $100 perhaps, give or take. Is that in the ballpark?
And relative to retrofitting, certainly a significant cost savings. The majority of what we see with the builders is that the electrical panel is typically on the exterior of the garage. So putting in the sleeve would simply be running through the wall, or maybe down a few feet just to make it a convenient, practical location. But that would be limited to for the EV capable, is just going through that wall.
And then the building code currently would already mandate that type of an outlet in anticipation of an electric dryer in a laundry room. Is that correct? Or do we mandate any 240 outlets in new home, single family home construction?
There's an option. Most builders select either. Some have gas dryers, some put in electric. It's not required that you put in both.
Oh, okay.
Do we require the electrical panel to be on the garage and not the actual house? The first house I owned in Superstition Springs, the electrical panel is actually attached to a bedroom wall, not the garage wall. My current house is on the garage wall. Has the code changed?
Mayor, Councilmember Summers, the location is up to the builder. It seems it's usually most practical on the garage, but it's not required to be.
Agreed. Okay. And the reason I ask that because running an EV line or 240 line from the outside of the house on a bedroom side all the way to the garage is going to be more expensive than if it's just popping through a wall, right? And then let's just use the Flagstaff EV ready. Yeah. So EV ready, What's the difference between the EV Ready that Flagstaff has and then just having a 240 outlet? Is there a cost difference between the two? Is there an electrical connection difference?
Mayor, Councilmember Summers, the cost would be the same. It's a 240 outlet. It's dedicated for EV, but the installation, right. And if it was located on a bedroom and run over to the garage, then yes, it would obviously cost more.
It would cost more, but under construction, it would be.
Right, the cost savings afterward would be even more significant.
$200 instead of $100, but I'm just ballparking. Okay. All right, that's it for now.
So we spoke with multiple builders that tend to build in Mesa, and it's a mix. A lot of the builders, they make it optional to do EV ready. They'll put an outlet as an option in certain neighborhoods. In other neighborhoods, it's become standard. And that's true for Blandford, Taylor Morrison, and Toll Brothers have indicated that certain neighborhoods, they already have it across the board. Others are optional. Lennar has already jumped to making it EV ready across the board for all of their homes. And for multifamily builders, we kind of the range seems to be typically in the 5 to 10% for EV installation. The chargers are installed already, and then another 5 to 10% for the EV capable. And that's in cities without any requirements. That's just market driven, and they've been installing that on their own. And so recommendations for Mesa, what's proposed is the EV capable for the dwelling units, and then for multifamily, similar to what the builders are doing, the EV installed at 5% and the EV capable at 10% of required parking spaces. And it's important to note that this is not in addition to the regular parking spaces. These still count toward their required parking. And for commercial, we haven't dived into researching that in depth yet. And this is limited to single and multifamily residential.
Just so I'm clear on what the 5%, is that stacked on top of the 10%, or is that 5% of the 10%?
5% is installed, so that's actual chargers, and then another 10% that are capable.
On top of the...
In addition to, yes.
Total of 15%?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry, is that more? Is there
Mayor,
more to the
Council,
presentation?
yes, just to add, so during our research, this is amending the building code was a straightforward, easy route to really get this going on right now in our community. Planning has been also researching what the other jurisdictions are also doing or are planning to do, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So Mary and her team has been really talking to the other jurisdictions and as well, including the commercial hotels and all the other things. But right now we can move forward and get it into our building code to be able to capture the developments that are coming through our building permit to really get it installed and get it moving, whilst we come back to the council in the future day to address the other things and also have it in our zoning ordinance as well.
Yeah, but we just thought this was the better path. You've asked us to look at a way to, standardize this, create into the code. And I think we had the discussion whether it's the zoning, do we do it through zoning or do it through the building code? And I think we concluded that this is kind of where most cities are going, and it would allow us to move pretty quickly on this. And that way we're just doing
building code.
Yeah, just right now, I think that's the proposal, is that correct?
Yes.
So, and I think then John can see, working with the builders up front, knowing this is gonna happen. So, in thinking about it, not every development building permit's gonna come through a new rezoning, right? So this would cover all development, even if it's as of right within that existing zoning. So this would apply. I think it gets a broader coverage than if we waited and did it on a, per zoning case that came in. So this allows us to kind of do it citywide. And I think what John was really trying to research is, this is similar to other cities, but even as the market is driving a lot of this anyway, and so we're hoping that this will be well received. They obviously know it's coming because John's been talking to him on the phone, but I think the market is driving a lot of this. So to put this in place we think it would capture a larger portion of the future development.
Yeah, I'll just chime in, and I know there's other people who want to comment. My question is whether or not, I mean, I think electric vehicle adoption is picking up some steam. I mean, there's a debate, you know, to what extent it'll ever be the dominant mode of transportation or not, but I think there's a good chance it will be, but certainly I think it'll be probably more than 15% of the inventory of vehicles in the near future. So the question is it good city planning to say we're only going to require 15% of multifamily parking spaces to have EV chargers when we know a few years from now there's going to be more than 15% of the vehicles in that parking lot are going to be competing for those few chargers? I guess that's my question.
Mayor, that's one of the things that we did speak with the builders about. And around the 20-25% of parking is where they start requiring extra dedicated equipment just for chargers. And so this kind of strikes a balance with, you know, the costs and what's put in today. Obviously, chargers could be put in, you know, in addition to this, but that's where they stress that additional stations past 20-25% really was a massive increase in cost for them.
I get that, and I'm not trying to make it, but that's 20-25%, and we're mandating 10-15%. So why not scoot up to? And it sounds like earlier you said we have the grid capacity, or without additional transformers in the neighborhood, to get up to 20%. So if we know that we need probably 25 or more percent, I'm just questioning the why not take it up to 20%, where we know that it's not going to require additional capital and, you know, infrastructure investment in the system, but it maybe it's more acknowledging reality that the adoption of these vehicles is happening, and some manufacturers like Volkswagen are saying we're going to exclusively produce EVs in the next short term. So this is, I mean, the train is coming, and I think we just need to acknowledge that.
Mayor, Council, that's a good point. In our discussion with the development community, they said the demand and the trends have not really kept up with expectations. So they caution us to really be mindful of requiring it. But what we can do is look into two ways of making it EV capable more than the percentage that is required. So in the future, if they need to do any retrofit, and it will reduce the cost, and then definitely we will look into increasing the number and then go back and have a very good discussion with them as to the direction of the council as well.
So you think the industry on its own is going to recognize this reality and without being mandated more and more include these things?
Yeah, Council, that's absolutely what they told us. If you look at even some of the residential development, they said, well, they've been doing it actually based on the demand, and then there are a couple of new multifamily that are coming to the city, and they said, you know, that's something that they've been doing it themselves, so they wanted to find a common ground with us.
So again, before we move off the point, I guess my question is, I would ask us to consider, let's do as much as we can just to acknowledge the reality of what's about to happen. Why not take it up to 20%? Because that's not going to require, you know, additional investment in infrastructure off campus for the development. But and I think as this story unfolds, and people that are renting an apartment and the price point of these cars comes down, and people that are living in multifamily, the inexpensive mode of transportation is going to be EVs in the next few years. So I'm just not sure that we, you know, well, I've made my point. I would question whether this is enough in the multifamily. I think, again, it's a reality in single family. You're not going to be able to buy a new home without a 240 outlet in the garage anymore. But multifamily is where it seems like the regulation is not catching up with reality quite fast enough.
Your council point well taken.
Mr. Summers.
So I'm just going to ask this as a philosophical question. If the market is driving this, then why are we mandating it? We have, I think I just read an article where Phoenix metro area is number 4 for apartment developments, right? So are we seeing this technology being adopted in the apartment developments that are coming to Mesa, or is it absent?
Mayor, Councilmember Summers. So right now, when a development comes in and we basically don't have any standards, they keep asking us, what are the standards in the city? And sometimes also they get far along without thinking straight away. And then when they are far along, they come back to say, well, we just realized that people looking to rent our apartments actually are asking us. So basically, we need to adjust our parking locations to be able to install the CVs, and when that happens, it actually becomes a problem. So,
But is there a way to encourage them to think about doing this without having to mandate it? Or better yet, is there a way that we can incentivize this through our fee structure for both residential and multifamily, so reduce the cost of permitting to do this particular work, so it's gets them moving in that direction and wanting to do it rather than mandating it?
Mayor, Councilmember Summers, talking about actually mandating it, when we met with the development community, the multifamily, in the first place, they actually supported the city to go ahead and have some standards in our building code, and also consider that, because so many times also when they hire consultants, they look into our building code, and sometimes when it's not mentioned at all, they begin to doubt whether it will even be allowed. We may be thinking it's just common sense to really allow that, but when it's not in our code, they begin to question whether the city will even support that. So standardizing something that is already done is actually a good thing. It's very clean, straightforward. That's why we recommend it be included in our building code.
It's interesting that there's some cooperation on this from the industry, because we haven't had cooperation on some other things from that industry, and to have them say that, yeah, you should mandate that of us, strikes me as a little bit odd. My concern with this would be, and I haven't made up my mind yet, in moving forward, I would like to see some numbers, whether it's from you or from the industry, on how, particularly for multifamily, how that impacts rental costs, if at all. When you start to lay more of this infrastructure, it might only be $100 for a single family unit to put in the pipe. It's nothing as far as a mortgage is concerned. But when you start putting more infrastructure in for multifamily, and we're going to start pushing up rental rates, that I'd have some concern about that. So I wonder if there's some data available on the impact of this that you could provide me.
Yeah, I think,
for the decision.
Mayor, I think that's going to be really hard to figure out. I think what I heard, though, from John is to say that on the multifamily, if we stay below that 20% that the mayor's looking for, it's not going to require them to add in another service coming in, electrical service coming in, that equipment. And so that's usually, for a lot of projects, that additional, or just the electrical, what do you call it? They bring the service, to provide that initial service is the biggest, that's a delays, there's expense there. So I think if we can stay underneath what they're already bringing that infrastructure in at the 20%, then I don't think they can claim that we're adding, a significant additional cost, especially if they're doing it on the front end. Because this is really, at this point, they're just tapping into their existing electrical service. We're just bringing conduit or bringing the service to those designated parking areas. So we brought this forward because the council asked us to. The council asked us to come up with some ideas to create a requirement from the city to make it known that's our interest. I think it sends a message too that it's important to us, not just from a marketing standpoint, but from an environmental standpoint. I think that's kind of where we started our conversation. So I think what we could do, John, we could work with that multifamily residential to get that blend or that total to add up to 20% for multifamily. But because I don't think, based on John, you're comfortable, is that by itself is not going to add additional costs. They're not going to have to bring in another electrical service to that multifamily just for the 20% additional parking. Is that fair?
Based on what the feedback we received from some of the builders. And, you know, the 5 and 10% is an average. It's, you know, some are below, some are above. That was kind of the median, and so we felt, you know, settling in around there, you know, some would have to bring it up. Others that are exceeding, they're already past it. But it would at least set a minimum standard for across the board.
But to your point, Councilmember, if we went above that 25%, then they would probably make the argument, now they're specifically having to add the electrical service just because to serve the electrical. And then maybe that's to your point, and then that additional cost is eventually going to have to get spread across.
And the industry itself should have the data. I mean, if I just sit here and ask you easy questions, what's my point of being here, right? So I know it's a difficult question, probably some hard, but I'd like to see if there's some data available, and I think the Multifamily Association, if they're saying 20%, I'd like to see that this isn't going to impact rents for people that don't have an electric vehicle. I'm assuming they would be charging for, pardon the pun?
Mayor, Councilmember Summers, they do charge. And also just to add, we did have a brief discussion about costs, and the multifamily developers basically told us this is not something that is going to or has been adding additional costs because they've been doing it already. If it was, we would have heard clearly and loudly from them as well. So
I would agree with that. And the capital costs, you know, if that's not going to raise the rent so much, and then if they're using this as a revenue stream, you know, I think that probably offsets the cost for, it's not borne on folks who are paying rent. That if you own a traditional internal combustion engine vehicle and you're not charging there, then you're going to Circle K or wherever and getting your fuel. You're paying for it there. And this is an opportunity for the home or the multifamily to build it there and add some revenue. As long as it's not being borne by the people who are paying rent, that would be what I'm most concerned about. So if there's any data related to that. But I still think we ought to look at our own processes internally and how much we charge. And if this is something that's important to council, then maybe looking at what permit fees are for existing and future EV connections and what those costs are, because when you're mucking around at a single-family residential, I assume you're supposed to get a permit?
Mayor, Councilor.
And the permit costs?
Mayor, Councilmember Summers, yes, absolutely. Right now,
I see them laughing.
Well, if somebody's retrofitting, it's because that still happens too, where they come back and retrofit. When it's part of the original permit, it all comes through with the whole package. But when they do retrofit in the parking lots or apartments, we expedite those permits automatically, and we combine the admin review with our building.
So you move them through fast, but there's still a cost to that.
Correct.
Yeah, and then for permits, I assume we're not going to increase the cost of the permits based on requiring this, right? The permits.
No.
Permit fees will be adjusted.
Right, well, and again, I just hesitate, you know, I know it's a favorite, you know, standard for developers and legislators to go after those fees, but that's how we pay for the staff that reviews it.
Agreed.
And hire the staff to get those reviews done quicker for what they want. And many of the developers will pay premiums on fees to get through the process faster. The permit fee is not a barrier to development. That's just not true, because poor John spends more time trying to deal with everybody who wants to pay for the expedited fee where they're paying a premium. That's where he gets overwhelmed. It's not from just all the regular stuff coming. It's everybody's willing to pay more to get it done faster. So the idea of trying to reduce fees or incentivize the fee isn't a motivation, I don't think, on the development community. It's about timing.
No, but the development community, while they pay it, ultimately the cost of that goes on the people who pay the mortgage.
This is
and
so
rent.
insignificant related to the cost of the project. It is not, it is fractions of pennies on the dollar for a rental unit compared to the cost of the improvement. The fee is not a trigger for
But
any.
in and of itself, but there
I'm just
are
saying, I will
things that
guarantee you
build up.
that the fees have no consequence to what someone charges for their rent. Absolutely not.
I
It's
just
too
need to
small.
see the numbers.
It's way too small. It just doesn't even compare.
Then I need to see those numbers. That's
Well,
all. That
I'll
was-
show you how much a project costs and what the fees are related to that, and then figure out what
Yeah, I'll
percentage
take
that is.
that.
And
I
it'll
just
be-
need, I want to see some
It'll be
data
less than
so that I can
1%.
make
I
a
mean, it's gonna
decision.
be a fraction of a percent.
Mr. Ready.
All right. I think I lost my train of thought in the last couple minutes, but I think sorry, Scott. Do we have numbers on how many this equates to as far as your research that you conducted with the development community, as far as folks being ready or capable? So what's that growth in the last, probably in the last 4 years, probably, that we're looking at? As far as any number of homes, multifamily units, or as far as stations that are available in Mesa? Did you all look at those numbers? No?
Councilmember, we can do the research, but we don't, and also, let me just get a bit of clarity on the question. Are you asking about how many new developments that have come in within the past years that have included EV stations? Just to get clarity.
We could go back and get that.
Yes.
I don't,
Just
you don't
a
have, yeah.
guesstimate
Yeah,
or something?
and what it
Yeah,
looks like.
What's that mean?
In the recent time.
Developments, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then to just the comment on the discussion right now, I think this setting a baseline is an important aspect, just on the equity front, ensuring that everybody has an equitable share to have a station at their especially multifamily. I would hate to see have and have nots kind of multifamily across the city, where you have certain areas of the city where you have more stations than other areas. And so I think setting a baseline is important to at least have a share, because there's a poll recently that came out maybe a couple weeks ago. EV anxiety as far as charging is still heavily out there as far as adoption. And I think as we get more availability of charging, I think we will see, I think my perception would see costs will come down, hopefully with the cars, and then there will be more adoption by everybody across the board as more manufacturers are doing more EVs in the market. So I just say that comment there. And as we mentioned, commercial, are we looking at, I'm just curious why gas stations haven't come on board quicker. I know commercial, we're probably looking at, job sites or areas where people work in, but just looking at maybe those gas stations, is there something in our code that doesn't allow for adoption as quicker? Because I would assume that, you want a customer that's there waiting 15, 20 minutes to shop in your gas station, as more gas stations are, building larger kind of internal stores, right? You see all these Quick Trips and Circle K's revamping, and so with more food options. So I'm not sure why the gas station folks are not adopting quicker to EV. Is it something in the market that just, or in our code that is not allowing them more space? Or just curious if y'all have any insights there, or Ian, maybe you have some info there as your research has shown, as we are expanding the grid of EV chargers, right? So.
I don't think anybody wants to spend 15, 20 minutes at a gas station.
But
you're charging.
Charging is going to happen at night at your home, or if you're traveling, it's going to be at a supercharger along the corridor. But Ian.
Yeah, and so Mayor and Vice Mayor, so interestingly, in the rural areas across the country, in Arizona as well, it is the gas stations that are putting in the charging because those are the only places that folks can stop. They've also got the infrastructure going there. You know, these guys can tell you better than I, if the Circle K over here on Center and University wanted to put in some DC fast chargers, like that's gonna take the amount of power that's going already to that building. I mean, they need to bring in additional infrastructure. So it is still today pretty cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
And so those level 2 chargers, yes, I mean, they don't just take 15 minutes, you know, so if you were to bring in lower powered stuff, those take hours. And so that's tough. They are all actively looking at this though, right now. So they will be prime candidates at some point, but just not really today.
Not yet, okay.
But I'm sure on our, I mean, I've talked with these guys a lot about our internal processes and procedures. There's nothing that we are doing that's prohibiting that.
Okay, just curious on that. Okay.
Mayor, Council, when it comes to the commercial hotels, offices and all that, that's something that we continue to research. I know the planning staff have done extensive research and are still talking to those industries. So in the future, we'll come back. And just to add to our permitting process, the reason why Mary and I were smiling, because I had a personal experience with obtaining a permit from our team, and it was very seamless. I was very, very much impressed with our team, how quickly they issued a permit. There was no any complications, and it wasn't because it was me. I actually made it clear that, you know, they should take me through the whole process. So we are not doomed, but we can absolutely find opportunities to continue to streamline so that this permit can easily continue to go through our processes.
Thank you. Ms. Duff, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for looking into this. I am one of the people who have been pushing on it for quite a while. There's some other considerations. First of all, the number one contributor to air quality, you know, the emissions in our air is vehicles. And Maricopa and Pinal counties are 2 of 30 counties in the United States that have failing grades on our air quality. I know if I pick up my phone most days, it'll tell me my air quality is not at a healthy level. It is also the trend in the United States of, you know, converting into electric vehicles. I think there would be a greater acceleration if we had more places that were EV ready. And many multifamily are not capable of charging. Therefore, renters are very hesitant also, you know, to have an electric vehicle if they live in a place that doesn't have EV charging. So as we ready our city for the future, and as we're looking at it, we need to be an EV-ready city. And we received that grant for $11 million so we could have in public places. And I think this is a good, coupling of being ready. Then when you think of Mesa, Arizona, we are equipped and ready for the future. I read and attend a lot of conferences. I go to conferences and read information on urban planning, and the Congress for New Urbanism and some others recommended that 20% is what they recommend for being a city that is EV ready, and the building code on multifamily. They see utilization is about 16 to 20% as a national standard. So I just want to encourage us to be ready for the future and not preparing our city for the past, and to think about our commitment in our climate action plan to improve our air quality. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have another thought to share. I think whatever number we set during this process, in the next few years, council is going to come back and increase it, because that's just the trend that is going. And so whatever progressive statement we make now is going to be viewed as being backward just a few years from now. So I think it is interesting that Scottsdale is already at 20%, I think, if I remember the slide from previously on multifamily. And I think people go, well, sure, Scottsdale's at 20%. They're, they're a forward-thinking community. I think we ought to push the envelope and be at 20% or 25% if we know that that's a number that's not going to, require a significant investment in infrastructure for the development community. I don't think it's a cost that's going to be passed on to low-income residents. I think, again, low-income residents, this is a revenue source for these multifamily complexes. They're not going to be giving away electricity for free in these parking lots. They're going to sign a lucrative contract with a contractor who's going to come in and love, to charge people for charging their cars. So it's not, I don't think, whatever incremental cost it is in the construction, I think the developer will say, I'll pay that gladly because I'm going to make money selling electricity to people in my parking lot. So again, I think we ought to take this number, and the other thing is I think we need to do this as fast as possible. Every time we have a zoning case with a multifamily project and I ask the question, how many electric chargers are there in this parking lot, and I get a blank stare back, I cringe at approving those apartment complexes. It's because they're obsolete from the time that we build them. And we're creating this problem that's going to have to be retrofitted at a much more costly approach going forward. So I would like to fast track this, do it as fast as possible, and increase the number to as much as possible. And I don't think we're going to get pushback from the industry. I think they're going to say thank you, for giving us an additional revenue source. And I think the people that want to buy low-cost vehicles and live in the city of Mesa will say Mesa's back, on our list of preferred communities because we want to own electric vehicles and we want to be able to charge them at night in our parking lots. So that's my 2 cents. I would like to see it either at 20 or 25. And again, I think that means 5 or 10 years from now, council is going to look back and say those backward-thinking people in 2024 only mandated this amount, but the inventory of vehicles is 60, 70%, and we have a crisis that we need to address.
Mayor, are you proposing increase the installed percentage or the capable percentage?
Capable, yeah, I mean, well, both. I mean, I think, again, the 5% number doesn't reflect reality.
I mean, is there a chance, though, that the installed technology changes, I don't know, so much that, right,
Yeah.
we're forcing it to be
It could
installed
be
today,
obsolete.
and in 3 years, that's not the fast charging anymore. I don't know. I guess you don't have an answer.
I'm just asking staff to look into increasing those numbers, and I'll defer to the industry to tell us.
Yeah, I think we just have to, if the goal is to go as high as we can before it triggers an additional service, which is then will add a cost, and then we'll be talking about a mandate that creates costs. We can talk about that, and so it's getting that combined number somewhere around 20 or 25%, right? Is that fair, John? Is that what you're hearing?
Based on the feedback we received so far, yes.
Yeah. So we'll circle back around with them and ask them, is it 25%? And, even if we just add it to the capable, the combined two, is that going to still be able to be managed within the current anticipated service, electric service? And if they say yes, then that's what we'll come back with.
All right, council, any additional discussion on this? All right, thank you very much. Next, item 3 is to acknowledge receipt of various meeting minutes. Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you, Mr. Summers. Seconded by Mr. Freeman. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you, Ms. Duff and Ms. Spilsbury, both voted aye, so that passes unanimously. Next is current events and conferences attended. Council members, anything you'd like to share?
I'll jump in.
Please.
I can see Scott smiling at me. Yeah, we had our National League of Cities came for their Centennial Roadshow to highlight 100 cities across the nation. I don't know if maybe Councilor Freeman wants to talk about this since he's on the board, but that was a neat opportunity to show off some amazing things in our city. And then We had the Arizona League of Cities and Towns conference last week, which was great. The mayor's faith breakfast was Wednesday morning. I'd love for you to talk about that, bringing together all of our faith-based community, and also attended a dinner that the Mesa Chamber of Commerce put on last week with all of their partners. So some fun events last week.
Great, thank you. I'll accept your invitation to talk about the Faith Leader Breakfast on the 28th. This is an annual event that we do, inviting all of the faith community leaders in the city to come and share with them a lot of things that we're doing in the city that we'd appreciate their collaboration with. And it was a wonderful event. Thank you to the council members that attended. We have continued to up our game in working with the faith community and getting their assistance, so that was fun to see. And then at the league conference last week, I was pleased to be part of a panel of mayors talking about youth programs, and then also Mayor Woods from Tempe and I had a panel discussing the Disagree Better initiative that we're encouraging people to take advantage of during this contentious election season. So appreciated the opportunity to do those things. Mr. Summers.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to mention one thing, congratulate East Valley Institute of Technology, EVIT, which is located in Mesa in District 6, did a groundbreaking, I guess, for their STEM Academy at EVIT. As you know, that education is important for a lot of the economic development we're doing in the area, particularly around aerospace and advanced manufacturing. So the new STEM Academy will open late next year with programs in applied engineering, aviation, and advanced manufacturing. So it's going to be exciting to see that the education programs that are happening in the Valley are also matching economic development goals for our city and our community. Oh, and I should mention, Boeing is a key partner in that. Boeing.
Intel and Honeywell.
And Honeywell, yep, that's it.
So I think, council member, that they're going to open classes November of this year.
I thought it said 25. You
That
could be
could be.
right.
Classes start in 2025. I think you can start enrolling or showing interest now, but I think you're right. It's 2025 will be the first.
Wait a minute. Enrollment starts November 2024, so classes probably start 25. So we're both right-ish.
Great. Council, anything else you'd like to share with us? All right, I know we've got an executive session still to go, so Mr. Brady, what does our schedule of future meetings look like?
Yes, Mayor, we'll see you on Monday for the council study session and council meeting. And just real quickly, Candace kind of mentioned, I'm just letting you know, in addition to the 3 items you heard about from the county receiving funding that required an IGA, we also are going to receive $20,000 for the Mesa Urban Garden, but it doesn't require an IGA, so it wasn't on the agenda, so she didn't cover it then. So it's just the announcement to let you know, in addition to the other 3 projects, we're also going to be receiving $20,000 for the urban garden, so.
From the county?
From the county, sorry.
Okay,
Thank you,
yeah,
Mayor. Yes,
okay.
I just said that, yeah.
That's
true.
great. Thank you, Mr. Galvin. All right, council, item 6 on our agenda is to convene an executive session for our annual review of the city auditor, clerk, attorney, and manager. Is there a motion to go into executive session on these matters? Thank you, Ms. Goforth and Mr. Summers. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Council members Duff and Spilsbury.
Aye.
Both voted aye, so that was unanimous. We will now go into executive session.